All right, let us continue. What we're going to do, I think, is going to have to be somewhat maybe clinical or disorganized. Just bear with me because the way I want to shoot this video is, I say shoot this video, God, I just dated myself, is I want to go ahead and showcase the Division 2, and the Division's E3 presentation in the mission for the police precinct. Now, what has been done is the developers have made some really interesting tweaks and changes here and there because the video itself that showed the E3 presentation into the police precinct doesn't necessarily do much, okay? So where we're starting from is right after clearing out the parking lot. If you look at, or if you remember the E3 presentation, the parking lot had some enemies that were coming at you outside of this door. Talked about it in the last video if you've been following. If not, no worries. You know, you're not really missing, I don't think you're missing too much, but I would say, yeah, you know what? You know, give the videos a watch, you know, hook a brother up. And so this is that door. In the Division 1, after the Division 1 launched, you had a mission that you needed to deal with here, which is right here in this particular spot. And that's where we're looking at this whole thing from. If you notice the sign, the little sign is up top here. If you notice there's some junk and graffiti on the walls, but these aesthetics have changed by the time the game launches in 2016. In 2025, a Brooklyn DLC has been, launched as well. And that Brooklyn DLC gives us a slightly unique picture in its own right, where this is the Division 2, by the way, in case you were wondering. The aesthetics have changed. This is the exact same spot on a fall day during the day compared to both other missions, where in the case of, say, the E3 presentation, you're watching everything unfold close to evening, whereas in the Division 1, as I'm showing you, it's actually now daytime. The Division has a dynamic time system because, again, which is something that many people may or may not know, but if you don't know that, you can see it. This is during the day, right? And, the clouds and all that stuff and such. Now, here's the crazy thing. In the Division 1, this is the only way you can progress through the mission, through this particular gate, which we're going to go ahead and progress through and play a little bit of, and then make our way into the parking lot underground of this whole thing. Come closer. Yes. Oh, I missed it. I was supposed to. Look at me. I was trying to flex. Let's take these guys out. And the JTF here, man, they do not cook much in terms of, I'm not gonna need this. What is that? That's that canister. Oh, Isaac, that voice. Isaac's voice. Oof. They kind of tweak the voice of your directive AI, which is kind of weird. It's another character, but there's still some Isaac, stuff in there. I don't know why they did that. That Isaac is very, very iconic in terms of it being like a guidance system for you. I think there are more guys coming. Oh, I threw the grenade in the wrong spot. Okay, some guys are on fire. This guy needs to take a beating. This guy needs to take a beating. And this guy needs to be on fire again if he doesn't want to hide and cover from me. Okay, so here we are. We have now made our way into this piece of the whole mission. Now, we switch out to the E3 trailer, and you'll see something pretty interesting. The agent walks into this door, but then turns and takes a left into this room over here, which is like some kind of a locker room of some sort, right? That's what it shows here. You go to the Division 2, which its DLC is being depicted here, and when you walk in, you do not go to the left, which they claim is a fitness room, but if you notice, it was kind of a locker room. It probably still is a locker room, but it's locked out. In this case, they want you to go straight, but there's also this little room on the right side here, which I don't know if you saw it in the Division 1 E3 trailer. You could see it on the right side, and I think it was slightly open, but the player does not go into it. It's right here. Interesting stuff, huh? Anyways, let's keep going. Let's kind of walk through. And they've modified the mission in that regard. So they probably giving themselves, a lot of freedom here to assess what it is that they want you to do. And then you go into a locker room here, which is interesting that this is a locker room. But here you can see that the locker room is actually on this side, giving you access to go through here. And you can go through those doors, or you can turn right and then you make your way into this kind of a control area of some sort with cells and such for prison, for people who may have been, basically locked in jail and such. And you can see kind of like the Precinct, how they were basically depicting this stuff back in the E3 days. Now, what's funny though is, if you notice, the look of this aesthetic between this and the Division 1 are just very different. When the game launched, this is what really irked a lot of people. They were like, man, I can't believe this game was not what we saw during E3 as well. So you go through here. Look, there should be an opening here. And is that, hold on, let's see. This might be that door of some sort, but then you make your way in here and it is slightly different in terms of the way where you are anyways in relation to the police department. But they did do a good job though, in terms of like, putting the nostalgia in play. Hold on, let me take these guys out. There's another guy coming here. He and I were going to face off and boom, in here. So this is kind of like a holding area with like some cells and stuff, server room. And as you make your way through the PD, you get to see all of this stuff. And then even the developers, when they did their little presentation, they kind of walk through the police department. They kind of, you kind of see like a board with all this stuff. It kind of shows you some really cool stuff. This stuff actually does exist in the Division 1, but not in this police station. I think they probably wanted to make this police station kind of a hub, like a central location or a safe house that you could basically come to in some sense. But they never really did. I think their plans were drastically different. You play Brooklyn once and then that's it. Narcotics Division, what's in there? And then there's some explosions going on, if you remember. And then they run into, I think, like the Armory, which is interesting. And I'll show you where that kind of, in a sense, intersects with the Division 2's Battle for Brooklyn. And you get like access to what's called a strong box, which basically it's a loot box. And you get yourself an MK17 SR. Does this weapon actually make its way into the first game? I don't remember. And then they start hearing some commotion, I think, outside. And they make their way outside the precinct. And, they jump into the madness, and then you see the Manhattan Bridge again from this particular perspective, and the whole thing is actually, done with. In this particular case with Division 2, we got to kind of play through the mission and such. I'm going to loot some stuff. There might be a box somewhere with loot, but honestly, man, at this stage in the game's, life cycle in my playtime and playthrough, I am not looking for a lot of loot. There are only specific things I would be looking for. So let me make my way in here. My FOV is also very different. It's a massive FOV. And this is the Armory right here. The Armory. She's getting, Jessica Kendall gets locked in the Armory here and such. So you basically have to make your way out there. So that's holding. This is, let me see if there's an entryway. Public waiting. It doesn't even say the Armory, whereas it does say that in the other mission. So when we go back to Division 1, right here, we got to make our way through the parking garage. And I think this may be where those other agents kind of come out from and then continue, they look in the sky and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. But it's really cool to see how the depiction of the game, looks in all the three different perspectives that you can actually get this stuff on. I mean, I'm really having a blast just walking through these mild comparisons when it comes down to it. You are next to go. I don't have as much gizmos here where I can just basically melt bad guys. I'm going to have to shoot you directly. You and I, we're going to have to fight. Okay. They're weaving and bobbing. All I got is my gun, and all I got is my bullets in this case. I want to make my way into the police department and kind of walk around, and also you can see it from this perspective. So you're coming in from the underground parking garage, and you make your way upstairs here. You don't see all this stuff here in the other because again you're not privy to it. Locker room, loot this. It says hostiles are detected and there are people in public waiting hall. Okay, let's go back and see what public waiting hall looks like on the Division 2 here. I think when I came holding, this is public waiting hall, I think. Hold on, let's find it. Let's find it. There it is, public waiting hall. From this perspective, it could be that you can, you're probably accessing it from here. Where are the stairs? Hold on. In relation to where I am in the police precinct, I can't tell you. I don't know. Let's see. Okay, this is outside. Oh, this is where we came from. Okay. But anyways, this, a public waiting hall from here. And then in this particular case, public waiting hall from another perspective in terms of where you're coming into the PD. Okay, so it's probably from this side. Maybe from this door right here. Restricted area. That's my thinking. That is my thinking on this particular area. Trying to kind of get a reference point of where the heck I am. Or maybe it's coming from, this says lobby. Nope. So it can't be coming from a lobby. This is coming from the holding area. This could be also coming, oh, that's upstairs. Restricted area, copy room. And so this is kind of stuff that, I would just sit here and play with. Or it could be coming from somewhere here, coming through here. And I don't know. I really do not know. But it's cool to see how everything got revamped. And the developers are basically bringing it back as a DLC piece. But this video has already hit the 11-minute mark. Any other questions you may have, whatever thoughts you may have, anything you want to point out, please do so in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching these videos that I've made on this particular issue with me. It's actually pretty cool. If there are any other, tidbits in Brooklyn that we see that have the correlation, I'll make videos on them. But I think the only nexus that we have in terms of both of them, or Nexi, it would be this police precinct in terms of, being able to explore it and do the mission and such. And they've structured both missions differently. Thanks again for watching. Talk to you all on another one. Peace out.